Be strong.
Alrighty, well, good morning and a happy Wednesday to you guys here from the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. Thank you guys for tuning in. 2 hours here, taking you guys up until 11 o'clock on the program. Thank you guys for tuning in to the Throw-In with Justin. And boy, 2 hours coming in. We're halfway through the week, and I would be remiss to say that it's a little bit emotional this morning. All right, you wake up, and for me, being a baseball fan, wake up in the morning and just to find, it's the last day of the season. And for most teams, right? For most teams, I think, you're ready for the season to be over with. You're eliminated from the playoffs. I mean, just look around the league, teams like the Washington Nationals, the Pittsburgh Pirates, the Cincinnati Reds, and you're just ready for the season to be over with. You're ready to go into the offseason, start making trades, start trying to fix your roster so you can better your team for 2023. And then there's 12 teams right now that are currently in strategy getting ready for the postseason that starts this Friday. And, I'm kind of in a mixed emotion right now because, being a San Diego native, rooting for the San Diego Padres, being my home team. The Padres are in the playoffs. They just officially clinched this past weekend. And, we don't want to really count or consider that the 2022 season because it was shortened. And, I think a lot of things didn't want to include in the 2022 season through the pandemic. But listen, the Padres have only been to the playoffs, a handful of times. And I remember it's been nearly 15 years since I've last seen them in the playoffs. And this is just a completely new environment. And on the other hand, living in Northern Kentucky, living in Cincinnati area, it's kind of, resonated that, hey, when I first came out here, the Reds were supposed to be on some sort of, hey, we got this. We could go to the playoffs. And that's not the case. They really hit a 180 in the last 2 to 3 seasons, and I'm very disappointed. And I'm sure that a lot of fans are, a lot of people are, but you still, as a baseball fan, you wake up on the last day of the season and you're kind of just a little bit emotional. Now, I mean, there's plenty of baseball left to be played in October. But it's one of those things where, you like the sport so much that you get a little bit emotional because it's coming to an end. You got, for me, it's you sit there, it's November, December, January, and okay, maybe partial of February. So 3.5, maybe 4 months of, no baseball, no contact. Now they have the Arizona Fall League and they have the winter ball and this and that, but those are mainly for young player, younger kids trying to make it to the trying to make it to the big leagues one day. They'll go to Japan and play in the Japan League for a little bit, or Korea, whatever the case may be. But for Major League Baseball, which is the number one source that we follow, it's a little bit emotional. And it's the same thing that happens on the in the NFL. You play once a week, and for me, maybe it's not as emotional when NFL season is over with, other than it's like, whoa, this season has come and gone so fast. And, covering the sport over the last few weeks, you feel like you really gotten a good lead on what's going on around not only the league, but with your organization. And realistically, you don't. This is come and gone so fast. Same thing with the NFL. And maybe this year, with the NFL, because how much we talk about sports and how much we talk about football, maybe it becomes a little bit more emotional for the season ending. But man, it's for me, it's just for me, it's a little emotional. So I'm taking it just a little hard. We got plenty of games yet to be played today. And just think about this coming up in a couple of days. We have the postseason starting, and we are on the way to making crowning a new or crowning another world champion in baseball. So a lot of baseball to talk about. Reds bounce back against the Cubs again. They taken the series, and you kind of have to feel a little bit good about yourself, I guess, if you're the Reds fans, as a Reds fan. But you gotta finish off the season hopefully strong today, this afternoon. All teams playing 4:05 around 4 o'clock. And now I know that Toronto, and I don't know how this is going to work because the Toronto, is it Toronto or is it Seattle? Let me look here for a second. I think it was Seattle that had a no Toronto and Baltimore. I'm sorry, had a rain delay postponement on their game last night. So it says here that they will be playing a double header, at least according to what MLB. So it's according to what MLB says. So the first game is going to be at 12:35, and I'm assuming the next game will be about 4 or 5 o'clock. I guess my thing here is I'm not too big about this game, to be honest, and even the makeup game. I know, I don't know. Do we really have to make up this doubleheader? And if you are making up this doubleheader, this changes everything when it comes down to, um, you know, teams that are going in the postseason. I think today, especially if you're playing Friday, which Toronto is, it gets the home field advantage in the wild card, and will be facing the Seattle Mariners this Friday. You don't want to play. I mean, it's already bad enough to play 14, to play 1 9 inning game today, but then to play 18 innings minimum in 2 games today. And I think that's just a little crazy. Now, it was not going to make a difference, a win or loss out of these 2 games don't make a difference. So I question a little bit. I understand that I'm not trying to say that the Baltimore Orioles don't need a doubleheader today, but realistically, it kind of maybe hurts the Toronto Blue Jays just a little bit, and it's going to be intriguing. Okay, I'm going to be fascinated to kind of tune into this 3-game series and see if this doubleheader on a Wednesday affects the Toronto Blue Jays in any shape, way, or form. The last thing you want to do is go out there and start an injury, right? You don't want to have an injury acquire, in one of these games. You don't want to overwork your bullpen that you're going to need for the weekend. You don't want to overwork your defensive and offensive players for the weekend. And you kind of would come into today's game, and if you're playing the 8 teams that are playing on Friday, you kind of want to just kind of dive into, okay, well, we should rest our starters, right? Give them a day or 2 off, light work in the rotation and out of the bullpen. Use the guys that we're not initially going to attend to use, especially Friday, maybe Saturday, and take it from there. So, I don't know. I'm not too big about the doubleheader game with the Toronto and Baltimore, and I guess we'll see how that unravels heading into this weekend as the wild card kicks underway. Well, baseball. Yesterday I came on here and I wanted to take a look and pick out the 12 teams that were in the playoffs this year, and I wanted to look at each individual team. And I think after doing that, it's a little too much, in my opinion. And so what I'm going to do is kind of change things up over the next 3 days before the postseason starts. I want to dive into each league, right, and each division. So today will be the American League, National League East. All right, take a look at the Yankees and the Mets and the Braves, and just give you my thoughts about the division overall. And then tomorrow will be the Central, and then Friday will be the West Coast, following by my bold predictions of how the wild card is going to go. I don't know. Do I want to give you World Series predictions? I'm thinking about that. So, we'll that's how we're going to dive into it. I think that's a better overall explaining. And then if we want to dive into each and every team a little later on, I could do a little bit more homework. But I think there's enough to be said about an overall, just a general division recap of the 2022 season. So that's what we have in store for you today. It is Wednesday, October 5th, which means that we can finally let week number 4 behind us because it's all said and done. It's all in the books. And we could dive into week number 5. And every Wednesday, we like to come on here and talk about the AFC a little bit. And we like to talk about the AFC North in particularly. Right? We'll take a dive a little bit, look into the coming up games between the NFC North. We'll also take a look at some of the teams in the standings. And the one thing I will say with the North is going to be about the Baltimore Orioles. And I'll leave you this before we dive into it. Is, either Baltimore is really confident that the rest of the division absolutely sucks, that they could go out on a limb and do whatever they want and take chances and blow ball games, or they just shot themselves in the foot. Okay, and this type of reactment, this type of gameplay calling is not acceptable. Not acceptable. It doesn't happen with great teams. And so we'll dive in. We'll talk a little bit about that. We'll talk about the quarterback situation in Pittsburgh. And really, we'll start diving into Cincinnati Bengals football as they get ready to play the Baltimore Ravens. Sorry, still on baseball thoughts. Baltimore Ravens this Sunday night, which is going to be a Sunday night throwdown. I think the back-to-back primetime games is really going to push and elevate the Bengals to play better. So I'm excited about that. And hey, listen, it is Wednesday, so we can't leave without starting to talk about AEW. And I'm trying to find the right time to really start talking about Extreme Rules because that's coming up here in the back end of the weekend. And but I was searching through social media this morning. I got up, took the girls to school, running a little bit late again, but got up, did what I had to do, was ready to go. And the first thing that I see is the entire match card laid out for AEW. And so it got me thinking this morning, which I want to kind of open the conversation to. And as we get ready, I'll share with you the match card that AEW Dynamite has planned for tonight. But my question is, overall, do you guys like AEW's tactics of promoting their product by at least the morning of giving you the entire match card of how the show is basically going to unravel? I mean, if you know each and every match that is going to be, do you prefer knowing each and every match on the card for a weekly show? Because it's one thing, it's understandable. You head into a pay-per-view, you head into a premium live, you want to know everything that's going to be on the card. You want to know all your matches. It's very more of a special event. But if you are on a regular Dynamite, Monday Night Raw, Friday Night SmackDown type show, do you want to know each and every match card? Do you prefer AEW's method or do you prefer WWE's method where they tackle in one or two promotions, they have a couple matches announced, maybe 3 or 4, and then maybe, hey, look out for the Judgment Day as they continue on their raft of dominance or excellentness and all that stuff. So that there is probably the highlight of what I want to talk about this morning. So a lot of stuff going on along in professional sports. If we have time, we'll talk some high school football. I mean, there's for me, listen, it's a little bit more complicated. If I didn't work on a 40-hour schedule, then when I work, I'm at a warehouse, I'm doing stuff, I'm not able to be on in front of a computer, I'm not able to go out to these schools and read these articles and whatnot. So it's a little bit more complicated. I do follow high school sports, but it's just the intensity is not the same. So I'm going to try to see what I can do to squeeze in high school football. I know I've been saying that for the last couple of days, but I'll see what I can do for there. And then we'll also just dive into these three big topics today: baseball, football, professional wrestling, kind of our key home. And I know, back on Monday, I kind of came in and I thought, okay, well, we'll talk about the NBA, getting you to the top 100. I just haven't gotten there yet, and I don't want to start a segment. I was hoping to start a segment. It didn't turn out. I just don't want to start a segment and then wind up not having ourselves a good segment and being trapped into a few minutes there. So, but alrighty, let's take a quick timeout. Let's take here on the program. Just getting underway, just getting started here on a Wednesday, and come back. Talk a little bit about the Cincinnati Reds, get you the highlights, scores, and updates. We'll give you the playoff pictures as it's official. The 8 teams are going to be playing starting Friday. And then we'll start diving in from there. All right. Let's take a step away. When we come back, we'll get started with the Reds highlights. Thank you guys for tuning in on a Wednesday morning. The Throw-In with Justin here on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. I want to remind everybody that if you miss any episodes of the Throw-In here, that you guys can, or if you guys are driving at work and want to listen to us on the road, be sure to download the Throw-In on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, anywhere you get your audio podcast. I like to make sure you invite you guys out there. Make sure to download and subscribe every episode. Halfway through the week, 9:23 here on a Wednesday morning. Thank you guys for tuning in. And, listen, I was, hold on one second. Listen, I was pretty, I was ready at the end of the week for the Reds to just get the season over with, right? They come in, they get swept from the Cubs at Wrigley, and I was just like, dude, they're gonna lose 100 games. It's complicated. I don't know how to cover a losing team besides just playing the highlights and saying, oh, okay, well, here we go. And especially when you have when you have the postseason coming up and there's teams that are winning, and maybe we should be following the Cleveland Guardians, who beat the Kansas City Royals. They're just up north in Cleveland, right? I mean, because the Reds aren't playing, should we be covering them? But I'm like, no, Cincinnati is the area, and we'll go on, and I think as a native, not a native, but as someone who's covering sports in Cincinnati, it's not like we do a lot of sports in Cleveland or, in Dayton, Ohio, or in Columbus, Ohio. Yeah, we'll pay attention to the Blue Jackets, But it's like, do you even pay attention to the Cleveland Cavaliers? So as one team is down, as your local team is down, there's a whole bunch of other baseball to talk about, and I still think it's a notion to try to at least cover your sports. So when the Cubs lose, when the Reds lose 3 games to the Cubs, I'm thinking, oh man, they're going to lose 100 games here, 101, 102. They're going to get swept again from the Cubs, and I really wanted them to finish off their season strong. And, they took game 1 by surprise to me. I'm like, oh man, I'm certain that they're not going to win game 2. And then they have a walk-off win, 3-2 again last night against the Cubs. They avoid 100 losses. And one of my key things was just, getting to 100 losses. So let's play those highlights for you, and we'll come back and talk about the game here afterwards.
It is Luis Cessa who gets the start. He's coming off his longest start of his career. He's got to be a little juiced up. One day closer. In the air to right, Jake Fraley. I love the weather. I love being at the...
one day. This Buds for you, 25-year-old right-hander Javier Assad to the mound tonight.
3-2 pitch, swing and a miss. Good sinking fastball, it looked like. And India is out number 1.
And a 2-2. And that one on a bounce. Could be 2. There's 1. And there's 2.
Comes Chucky, Pep.
Contreras drives one in the air. Deep center, back toward the wall. That ball is gone. Wilson Contreras with a home run, and the Cubs lead 1-0.
Contreras goes yard for Wilson, number 22. 1-0 Cubs.
Just a bullet hit off the bat of Contreras.
Chicago Cubs and Wrigley Field. Horner cracks one in the air. Deep left field. It's got a chance. Gone.
Yeah, flex it, Nico. Next round number gets to 10 on the season. If I had one more question for hitting coach Greg Brown, I would say, hey, what's the ceiling for Nico in terms of power? But we'll save that for another day.
3-2 to Guerrero. He'll take it up high. Ball 4, a 2-out walk by Thompson.
Barehanded approach, no batting gloves, which is hard. Fly ball to right field, over the right field wall. Home run, Chucky Robinson. We have a tie game, 2-2 here in the bottom of the 7th inning. And now the outs, they don't matter quite as much. That is the swing we were looking for in the home run inning. Opposite way, second homer for Chucky Robinson. Yeah, the rookie's been a little over 100 in his batting average, and he has had his share of squared up outs, line drive smashes, and he gets one to carry that evens it up. Grabs this ball to center. Corral flying back. It's over his head. It's off the wall. Fairchild loses the helmet. Windmill at third. He races home and the Reds win. Smash to center by Spencer Steer.
Alrighty, Spencer Steer there picking up a walk-off hit, scoring in Fairchild, and listen, not a lot of offensive production from these Reds, from the Reds team. 3 runs, 6 hits, 2 errors in the ball game. Luis Cessa goes 5 innings. I think that's a solid outing, giving up 1 hit, 1 run, 1 walk, 4 strikeouts with a home run, and then Cruz giving up a home run as well. And those are the only 2 runs that the Cubs mustered in. So this homestand is turning out to be something at least to end the season off with the right note. And the Cubs moved to 73-88 on the season, 3rd in the NL Central. The Reds are 62-99, 4th in the NL Central. And if you look at, and the only reason I'm looking at the standings is because the Reds, no matter what, cannot be finished in last, because the Pittsburgh Pirates lost yesterday to the St. Louis Cardinals, which, okay. So the first I gave you guys 3 objectives back on Monday. 1, let's not lose the series, which we didn't, because we're going to win the series regardless of a win or loss today. 2, let's not lose 100 games. Now, we are still set up to lose 100 games if we lose today, and I think I'd fit more at ease if we lost, not knowing that we're not going to hit 101, 102, for the season. And 3, let's not finish in dead last, because come Monday, we had an opportunity to finish dead last depending on the outcome of these last 3 games. So, there motivation to come out of the Reds, in the offseason. I think these last 3 games really help out, listen, to see that they're still battling it in and Steer and, Fraley and Farmer. And these are, like I mentioned, a lot of these guys are going to be back, right? You have, India that's going to be back again, Fraley, Farmer. I don't know about Solano, but Fairchild. I mean, this is not the team that we're expected to see in 2023, right? I think you got Votto coming back, Mustaka's coming back, and then, there's going to be some key things that we're going to look into. But it's nice to see that everyone is contributing. Like I said, it wasn't an offensive production, but Fraley getting a knock, Farmer getting a knock, just to see Barrera up there, participating, it's giving me a little bit of enjoyment that we could finish off the week strong. Now, listen, I'm going to be that type of stingy person and said, let's go for the sweep. You went into Chicago, and you lost all 3 games, and why not come home and take all 3 games against Chicago? Let the Cubs finish up 73-89, right? I mean, that would be my prediction. That would be my wish for the Cubs. But they played later on this afternoon at 4:10, because everyone plays around 4:00. Okay. You got Adrian Sampson on the mound for the Cubs. He's 4-5, 3.10 ERA, 101 innings pitched, and 70 strikeouts. His last game was back on Saturday against the Reds, and he actually went 7 innings in that game, giving up 3 hits, 1 run, 2 walks, and 5 strikeouts. For the Cincinnati Reds, you got Graham Ashcraft, and I think this is going to be a great matchup. 5-5, 4.52, and 99 pitches, 99 innings, 67 strikeouts. He would pitch. This is a rematch from Saturday. Ashcraft gets a chance to reprove himself. He only went 2 2/3 of an inning, giving up 5 runs and 2 walks. So I think that this is an opportunity for Graham to come back and kind of have a last good outing, in Cincinnati, have a good outing before the end of the season. And, just let's take it day by day, and finish off the season strong today. All the other teams today are facing at around 4:00, as I mentioned. The Toronto Blue Jays clinched the home field advantage earlier this week. So they will be taking on Seattle Mariners because they clinched that spot with the victory last night. Tampa Bay will go on and face the Cleveland Guardians in the 3-game series. The Atlanta Braves, with the victory over the Mets last night, which was, I think, the only thing to look out for. So I tuned into a little bit of the Mets game, right? Because they played a doubleheader yesterday. They go on and they win the first game at a final score 4-2. And the scenario was that the Mets needed to win out and the Braves needed to lose out in order for, the Mets to win the division, which I thought, listen, Miami is not going down without a fight. And I think Don Mattingly, who's retiring at the end of the season, kind of got put in a crappy position because, all his great starters are shut down on the season, and Braves walked away with the victory. So, as we look at this, which is actually pretty impressive, we'll talk about this in a little bit, but the Braves clinched the East. The Mets are going to be the home series wild card winner. We'll go on to face the Padres because the Padres beat the Giants 6-2, and the Phillies will head over to St. Louis to face the Cardinals. So that's going to be the playoff picture. We'll dive into that a little bit more aggressively. And, yeah. So the way, now the strategy is on, the strategy of who do you throw out there today? Do you have your starters play half a game? Do you have them sit today and tomorrow getting rested, especially for those 8 teams that are designed or supposed to be playing coming this Friday? Who do you throw out there? Do you have a bullpen day? Do you have a starting pitching day? Do you have your starters out there? Do they pitch the entire game? Do they play the partial of the game? What's the case, especially in the last game of the season? So, all right, let's step away. And when we come back, I want to dive into the American League, National League East. I'll let you know my overall thoughts on those two. Don't go nowhere. You guys are listening to the throw-in right here on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. Excuse me. I'd like to give a big shout out to StreamYard Studios, the proud home of the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. Create your podcast, YouTube videos, host virtual business meetings, and even conduct interviews. All through StreamYard. Check out the free version today at StreamYard.com. Like I said, I've been using them for over a year. They never seem to disappoint. Always coming up with new creative things. If you're looking for audio, visual, you could have a guest on, share screens. I mean, this is a virtual way of doing things. Now, yeah, there's a lot of other great product out there, I'm assuming. Never tried it. Never tried Zoom. Never tried, OBS or whatnot. But StreamYard works, especially if you want a simple function and just, hey, come on, type in a few things, click record, and hit play. All right, 9:41 here, taking you guys up until 11 o'clock, and I want to dive into, a new approach. Like I said, yesterday when I came on, I spoke about how I wanted to take a look at all 12 teams, and I realized quickly as we were talking about the Dodgers and the Padres making the playoffs, how just more difficult that is because, I've been following the Reds. And I've been looking at the standings, but I really have more vast knowledge over the last month instead of the entire year. So instead of trying to cover a few teams here and there, I'm just going to go ahead and give you my thoughts on the overall, change to each and every division. Right, each and every division that and then the teams that are going to the postseason in that division, and it looks pretty quiet. So I think it's on both leagues, it's very identical with each other. You have 3 teams coming out from the East on both sides. You have 1 team coming out from the Central, and then 2 teams coming out for the West. And I'm like, oh, wow. I just now we're realizing that. And this morning when I was thinking about how I was going to approach this new approach, I'm like, we're covering the East first. And the East has 6 teams in the East alone. Take a look. That's a 50% chance out of the 12 teams of one of the East winning the World Series this year. And you start with, I was like, okay, let's start with the American League East, because are you surprised? I'm actually very, very surprised that 4 of the 5 ball clubs are finishing above 500. You know, I think a lot of people, and I know when people take away this season, and at the end of the day, when you take away the win loss factor, who's made it to the playoffs, who didn't, none of this is going to matter. But one team that I think really surprises me the most, other than a American League East, is those Baltimore Orioles. I mean, who would have thought that they would be contending up until last weekend to make it to the playoffs? Who would have ever thought, if you would have told me at the beginning of the season that the Baltimore Orioles was the team who was going to finish above 500 or at 500 at least, right? I would have said no. And they are above 500, right? They still have 2 games to play today and a makeup from yesterday. Now, I tell you this, I don't think that those 2 games should happen. I mean, I agree with one of them, but in the circumstances of the Blue Jays making it to the wild card game on Friday, and there's no implications and there's no means necessary that changes how, what happens over the next 2 games. So you're telling me that, yeah, overall Seattle faces plays one more game in the regular season than the Toronto Blue Jays, but Toronto Blue Jays, if they would have to play this, the last game of the season, they would have to play it on the back end of a doubleheader, which now you've already known the stress that you put on a doubleheader between game 1, game 2, and yeah, they have Thursday off, and yes, they're home, but you got to remember they're playing at Camden Yards, they're playing in Toronto, so that you have to play a doubleheader in Toronto. You're going to fly back tonight, or you're playing the doubleheader in Baltimore. You're flying back tonight to Toronto. You'll get Saturday, you'll get Thursday, and I'm pretty sure Seattle's going to do the same thing too. I mean, I guess my question is that all the teams that are on the road, the Padres, the Mariners, Tampa Bay, and the Phillies, how many of them are flying out to their destination tonight? Are any of them, are any of them staying home? Tampa Bay is in Boston. You're going to go to Cleveland. You might as well just fly to Cleveland Thursday, Friday. Don't even worry, because it's not like you're going to have a home game. Just fly to Cleveland. Seattle, just fly. You're home to Detroit. Do you leave first thing Thursday morning? I'd say if you get the opportunity to leave at night, then leave at night. I mean, Philadelphia is in Houston. Why don't you just go to St. Louis from there instead of flying home, coming over here? The Padres are home. So I guess, like I said, the question is do you wait until Thursday morning to take off and, make that a travel day? Or, because then you have to deal with the time changes, especially Seattle, especially San Diego. They deal with the time changes going into the East Coast. I'd rather take care of that tonight, let them sleep most of the day tomorrow, and then be ready for Friday. But the Baltimore Orioles really surprised me this season. All right, they made the stretch around the All-Star break, and I had a call a buddy of mine who came up to me. I was like, "What about them Baltimore Orioles? I mean, they're making that stretch. This was the same time that the Yankees were making their stretch, right? They were putting their claim on being the greatest, on being the best team in baseball this year. Before halftime, they were most certainly going to probably had the best record. At least they were set up to have the best record. And now they're scrambling just to win 100 games, just to be impressed, And they face the Texas Rangers, and I think the Rangers will like to hold them from that. I think that's the only thing for the Rangers to play on. But Baltimore really surprised a lot of people, especially surprised me in my books. They don't finish last. I mean, Boston is the team that finished last this season. And, when you look at this, the entire American League East, and one of the reasons why they were so dominant, so successful, that's why 4 of the 5 teams were above 500. They all dominated at home. I mean, So when you look at, you want to make your case of, of a league or a division to really maybe follow on, even though the Yankees didn't, they fell in that stretch halfway through the season. And I think this is where I start to say that, okay, Yankees had a great first half of the season. And you know that every team has their ups and downs and has their skid runs. And most teams, and I think it's, it comes to show, or comes to say, I think a lot of analysts will say, yeah, your run should come down. And if you could plan it right, that run comes down at the right time so that when you get to the postseason, you could pick it back up. So, there's, Yankees really has a tough stretch coming out of the All-Star break. And, like I mentioned, this is a team that, was on the path to winning 100+ games. They were on the path to being the best team in the American League. They were on the path to being the best team in baseball. But something happened where they just took the foot off the gas. They went into some skids in August and September, and even at a moment they were finding themselves trying to contend for the AL East, and they have came by. Now they have an opportunity today to win 100 games, and if they don't win today, okay, Houston Astros will be the only team in the American League this year to win 100 games. Toronto Blue Jays, another team that, I've expected the Blue Jays to play well. I expected them to be in the playoffs. And so I think they exceeded my expectations. I expected them 87 to 92 wins, and they're right there at 91. Tampa Bay, a little surprising, because with Tampa Bay, they add some players and they develop players. But then by the time you develop them, they send them off somewhere else to have a successful season. Now, Tampa Bay, they're in it because they won 86 ball games. Okay. And I don't think anyone expected the Central to barely win 100, have any teams above 500. In this case, we'll have two, and we'll talk about that tomorrow. But overall, tough division. Yankees at 99 wins, Toronto at 91, Tampa Bay at 86, and Baltimore at 82. And they still got Baltimore and Toronto has 2 more games to play, if they're going to play them. I say an if. Because I don't know if the commissioner of baseball is going to change anything, but that's a big if. Little disappointed in the Red Sox season, but and I guess when, hey, if you're the only team that's under 500 in the division, you deserve to be in last place, right? The National League East was a little bit more complex. You have the defending World Series Atlanta Braves, who just clinched the AL East for the 5th straight year over the Mets. The Mets, I think, out of any team that surprised me the most in the East, besides Baltimore, had to be the Mets, because I knew the Mets were going to be a good team. I didn't know they were going to be a 100-game win good team. And, this is the first time in history that 2 teams come out of the NL East winning 100 games, as New York took both Washington games yesterday. I knew Philadelphia, it was going to be a solid team this year. I knew that they were going to contend, but my other worries were about the Padres and then about Milwaukee, because definitely, hey, I'm sorry to tell you this, but I apologize for the Milwaukee Brewers not apologize for Milwaukee not making it into the playoffs, but you sure gave the Phillies and those Padres a run for their money, and and made them earn a spot in the wild card. So Milwaukee, you got to keep your head up high. But Philadelphia, and this is the other thing, you have Bryce Harper, you got JT Realmuto, you got Nick Castellanos. I mean, you got a playoff team. And when it comes down to Philadelphia, I think a lot of people, I know me, has expected a lot more success out of them, that they just haven't generated. And when you have a bigger payroll and you have better star talent, I really see Philadelphia one-on-one with the Padres in a good throwdown. You got Manny Machado, you got Juan Soto, Josh Bell, Will Myers, and then over there for Philadelphia, you got J.D. Realmuto, Bryce Harper, Nick Castellanos, who is having a season to remember again. Washington, I think, really took me by surprise. If I'm not mistaken, Washington is going to finish off the season with the worst record in baseball. They're currently sitting at 155 and 106. And boy, I tell you, they have the work cut out for them. And I think the first thing that in a long time that we have to sit back and realize is that Washington, I haven't seen this type of season from Washington since they transitioned from the Montreal Expos to the Washington Nationals. So, they're going to have an off season, a lot of work in the off season. Was it surprising by Miami that they finished? I mean, they didn't finish dead last, but they finished, close to the bottom of the league. No. And I think when you really look at why did they finish so terribly, I think this season was a perfect statement on the explanation on why did they finish the season so terribly. I mean, it was Miami, Pittsburgh, and even Cincinnati who were exposed as teams that were selling and kind of just banking in on the bunk with their rosters. They would go build them up to trade them, not to invest in anybody else. They would pocket the money. I mean, and when they were exposed with this new collective bargaining agreement, I think a lot of these teams that were really out there and that were not in favor for the bargaining agreement kind of did everything opposite to what a winning ball club should have done. And I think, I don't want to go out as far as saying it's an alter ego of these ownerships to try to, make a point. But I mean, we experienced that here in Cincinnati where even before the first home game on the season, they were out there saying, well, you're the fans. We're going to do what we want to do. And you're still going to come give us your money, whether you like it or not. We're not leaving. You're not going to get rid of us. We're not walking away from the organization. And if you don't like it, oh, well, you're still going to come and give us your money. You're still going to come these players. So there you go. I mean, if you think about it, the Reds are just 20 minutes away down from an independent baseball team called the Florence Yalls. All right. And yeah, there's nothing special about them, but Major League Baseball is where it's at. If the fans really wanted to, they could have went down 20 minutes down into Kentucky, all right, in Florence, and they could have rooted for the Florence Yalls, and that could have been sold out each and every weekend. That wasn't the case. Right? People still went to Reds game. There was Reds games last night. There was fans there last night rooting on for the Reds. So are you surprised that Miami finished in fourth place, if not dead last? I'm not. But Atlanta, New York, and Philadelphia all made it to the postseason this year. And 6 teams of the 12 teams that are going to be in the postseason are out of the East. And it's going to be difficult. It's going to be a tough challenge. Philadelphia will be on the road against St. Louis, right? In all 4 games, let me just put it that way. In all 4 games, this wild card series, there's going to be a team from the East Coast. Philadelphia and St. Louis, Padres home to the Mets. Tampa Bay's in Cleveland, and Seattle's in Toronto. So, right now, talking out of the East, the National League East have 2 more teams on top of that made it to the divisional series. So they have a really good chance at walking away with the World Series here this year. Atlanta Braves are looking to repeat themselves. And, I think it's been underappreciated how well that East is. I think, for me as a West Coast, I think I'm a little bit skeptic. I don't really like to root for the East Coast teams. But hey, both the Central and the West Coast have their hands full, and it starts this Friday. All right, we'll come back tomorrow and talk about the NL-AL Central and take a look at the Cardinals and the Guardians, who have clinched and won the division. The only two teams out of the Central that are going to the playoffs. Oh gosh. All right, hour number 2 coming up here next. NFL Week 4 is past us, and NFL Week 5 is among us. Bengals home game against on the road against Baltimore, Sunday night throwdown. Really great series. But I want to take a look and dive into the AFC North just a little bit more. I want to get ready for this week. There's a lot of questions that need to be answered. And, hey, this division could have been completely different a couple of days ago if certain teams just played fundamental football. So all that still to come. Thank you guys for tuning in. Hour number 2 coming up next. You guys are listening to the Throw-In on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. All right, hour number 2 here on the Throw-In with Justin on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. I want to give a big shout out to Spreaker, our audio platform. And so after we get done with our show on each and every morning, what we do is I download the episode from StreamYard to the computer. I go into my video pad. I'll cut out the breaks that I initiated throughout the show. I'll jot down those times, and then I would re-download that to the computer and upload it to Spreaker. And then I would go back in, and Spreaker has ad options, replace those ads back in. So, but I actually, found Spreaker a few months back, thanks to Steve Barber over at Armchair Booking Podcast. And that's one thing great about when you do podcasts, you do radio shows, you do these type of shows, that you get to kind of ignite and, reach out to other podcasters and kind of pick their brains about what makes their program the success and what you got to do, what you don't got to do. And so that's one thing that I really, that you really enjoy, that you take away, is the experience and the knowledge that you learn and you give to help others out. And so Steve Barber a couple months ago, talked about Spreaker, and I'm like, oh, you getting Spreaker? You're getting monetized, whatever the case may be. And he was like, yeah, you showed me how to do it. So, and I think ever since then, it was been a great decision. I like Spreaker so much, and it gives you the platforms that you need. And it really just gives you the ability to, to also just kind of gain a little bit more each and every day. So, Spreaker.com, if you guys want to check them out. Like I said, you could upload an episode, distribute it out through Apple Podcasts, Podchaser, Spotify, iHeartRadio, all that fun stuff. So I really encourage you guys to check them out. And we thank Spreaker for providing their tools, their knowledge, their accessibility for our show and for our program. And it's not as complicated. Once you have it down, once you know what you're doing, which is self-explanatory. It looks complicated, but once you really read it, read the descriptions and all that stuff, it's very self-explanatory. All right. We have finally set past week number 4. We could find on a Wednesday, we could let the past be the past, and we can move forward. All right. And there's some big questions coming out and heading into week number 5. The Rams lost on Monday night against the 49ers. The 49ers defense prevailed. They just lingered out, and they really just dominated, right? Just like any other team should have. Well, the Cowboys are coming into town, and they get to face the Los Angeles Rams. And I feel like this is one of the big platinum games coming into the season, or coming into week number 5 at least. Excuse me. But, you got the Packers in week number 5. You got the Rams, and you got the Cowboys, Sunday afternoon game. The Cowboys come in 3-1 as the Rams come in 2-2. Now, is it, are we not believing in the Rams? No. Do I think it's going to be difficult this year for the Rams to go, if they want to have a repeat, to go back? I think so. It is. I don't think that they, their team is not the same. They don't have the best offensive, line that protected Matthew Stafford last season. Matthew Stafford came into the season banged up. And they don't have the same defense that they added on when they added Eric Weddle. And, so there's some issues coming around, lingering in LA. Am I concerned? A little bit, because especially, one of the things that the Rams needed to solve was the way that the 49ers handled the Rams last year. And it looked like it carried over into this year. And so hopefully that doesn't continue and they can find their means. But the Cowboys are coming into town, and their bigger question is what quarterback do they want to start? Dak Prescott, Cooper Rush? I mean, Cooper Rush is right now 3-0. Okay. He's 3-0 on, at least in this year, with the Cowboys, and they're 3-1. And I've given you my suggestion in keeping Cooper Rush in the mix until he could prove to you that Dak Prescott needs to go back into the game. So look out for the Cowboys and the Rams. Really a favorite game that I enjoy watching. Another team that I'm enjoying to watch, or another game that I'm looking to tune into, is let's not forget the London series. All right, the Giants and the Packers. That's going to be a morning 9:30 a.m. Eastern time game on Sunday, and this is the second game in London this season. And remember that whole stretch, they have a couple Mexico games, a couple Sunday, London games, whatnot. Germany a game, I think. But the stretch is that Aaron Rodgers is going out of the country with a whole bunch of rookie receivers that are starting to shape up to how he wants them to play. I think he's even compared a couple of the receivers to Devontae Adams. And then the Giants, the big issue coming out of New York, they're 3-1, but they don't have their two quarterbacks. They don't have Tyrod Taylor, and they don't have Daniel Jones. So exactly where is the Giants going to pull away with the victory? And it's kind of hard. Both teams coming in 3-1. I mean, it's going to be. I think it would have been more of an interesting game if they had either Tyrod Taylor or Daniel Jones. But I get worried about that. All right, you do get concerned. You have a couple of division games as the Raiders and the Chiefs play Monday Night Football. The Bengals, we'll talk about the Bengals here in a moment, taking on the Baltimore Ravens on Sunday Night Football game as well. And then Thursday Night Football coming up tomorrow, which we'll talk about, is the Colts taking on the Denver Broncos. Russell Wilson is trying to get back onto some sort of, kind of rhythm as he takes on Matt Ryan. And it would be impressive to see Matt Ryan to come in and take care of business against Denver. So we'll talk more about other games going on around in the NFL coming up tomorrow, the power rankings. And I just wanted to give your thoughts out here. I want to give you the top 10 teams right now in the power rankings. And coming in at number 10, we sit here and we see the Miami Dolphins. Now, I think that, I think it's clear that obviously Teddy Bridgewater is going to be the quarterback, at least for the next week, if not two. I don't know the protocol. Okay, so I took a picture of this, so let me pop it up here for you. Because I have the protocol. This was something I just pulled up on a Sports Center a couple of days ago. So there are 5 steps for developed by NFL head and neck and spine injury. All right, so there's a 5-step process for concussion protocol that in order to even consider Tua Tagovailoa's return, he's going to have to pass. Step number 1, symptom limited activity. Number 2, aerobic exercise. So pardon me. I'm reading this as it comes along. Number 3, football specific exercise. Number 4, team-based non-contact training. And number 5, full football activity clearance. So those are 5 steps that Tua's going to have to surpass and pass in order to get back on that field for the Dolphins. And even after that, I have to be honest with you, I am very concerned about Tua's return this season alone, because the injury that we saw last week was a trauma to the head, neurological. And I'm not looking for short-term plans. I'm looking for long-term plans. I mean, Shannon and Skip on Undisputed has talked heavily about this, and I'm sure there's been a lot of other programs who have spoken heavily about this that are covering the NFL, even if you're not covering the NFL. And I remember, Thursday night, within maybe minutes of that injury happening, all right, people have already said Tua should have never played, all right, and then doctors even came to social media exclaiming what we just saw. And it's so interesting because you see a lot of doctors today, physicians, doctors, on social media, and they're really giving your thoughts and breakdowns on injuries and all that stuff. So Miami's in the 10. They got Teddy Bridgewater. I think that they still should be comfortable right now. I think, and I say, hey, give Tua a couple of weeks off. Let him, he just got banged up back-to-back weeks. I mean, I don't think, I kind of want to look in here. Their Dolphins are sitting, 3-1. They face the Jets this weekend. Do you think that Teddy Bridgewater can hold up against the Jets? I think so. I don't question it. I mean, he held his own, and especially now knowing that you're going to be starting, of course. But then they got Minnesota, and then they get Pittsburgh and Detroit. I mean, if you honestly, if you sit him out for New York, you maybe sit him out for Minnesota, put him back in for Pittsburgh, or even put him back in a couple of weeks. I mean, he needs to be sit out for a while. In my opinion, he's done for the rest of the season, because I do not want him to have a repeat in the dog days when we hit November and, November against Cleveland and Chicago, we go to Houston. You don't want to have a Sunday game on the, Thanksgiving weekend against Houston and have another injury like that. And then you face the 49ers and the Chargers. I mean, if you want him ready for the end of the season, I would have him sit for quite some time. All right, 2, 3, 4 weeks, let him rest, maybe take a couple of snaps in here and there, but I don't know. That's a big question for me. Coming at number 9 is Minnesota. Tampa Bay comes in at number 8, and we know about that. It's going to be the defense to carry Tom Brady. And I don't know, Tom Brady had a really good game last 2 weeks, a matter of fact. He threw for some really well yardages. He had some great completion percentages. It's just it wasn't enough to get the victories over Green Bay and over Kansas City. And you don't want to say that, Tom Brady being 45, having his special off the field issues is starting to affect his on-field plays. But Tampa Bay, looks to show some cracks in the hole. And I really don't know who's the favorite team right now in the NFC. The Rams are not playing well. The Buccaneers are not so great. I mean, is it Philadelphia? Green Bay? I mean, are we buying back into Aaron Rodgers? Hey, He's developing a playoff team again without top stars. So that's gonna, so those are questions coming out of week 5. The reason why I want to talk about the top 10, the Bengals, the Ravens come in at number 7, and I'll tell you why when we come back from the break. But Bengals come in at number 6, 5. Jimmy Garoppolo, 49ers, great defense, especially out of the great defense last week. Aaron Rodgers coming in at number 4 with the Packers. Kansas City Chiefs, number 3 with Patrick Mahomes, and a kind of little, false weekend. Number 2 is the Buffalo Bills, and number 1, Philadelphia Eagles, 4-0. I think if I'm not mistaken, they're the only undefeated team in NFL this year. And obviously, Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes are 2-3 because there's just no worries about them. I mean, yeah, they both lost, a couple weeks ago. But Josh Allen looks better than ever. Patrick Mahomes looks better than ever. Andy Reid definitely knows what he's doing. So that is your top 10 week 5 NFL power rankings. You guys could check that out on the NFL website. All right. When we come back, I want to dive into the AFC North because, we have quarterback situations. We have some lousy playing calling from certain teams. And in a blink of an eye, this season could simply, this division could simply change around for what we saw over the last 4 weeks. So we'll talk about that. And still yet to come, I want to know, what do you guys prefer? Do you guys want to hear? Do you guys like seeing AEW's process of their show weekly where they give you the entire match card? Or do you prefer WWE's version where they give you a couple matches and they give you highlights and the rest is expected to see when you get there? So all that's still to come. We'll get you guys ready for AEW Dynamite tonight and all that. Thank you guys for tuning in. We'll be right back here on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. $10.24 on the throw-in. The AFC North, I think, has kind of taken a turn, and maybe, just maybe, this is the path and window of opportunity for the Cincinnati Bengals to step in and really try to get ahead of the game before we hit November, December, because once we hit those day games, every game's crucial, and we obviously knew, right? What we know. What do we know? Well, we know that the Bengals should have beat the Pittsburgh Steelers back in week 1, but because without a long snapper and the backup long snapper couldn't do his part, that really cost us the game. What do we also know? Well, Cooper Rush, we didn't know nothing from Cooper Rush in week 2 as he made the backup start from Dak Prescott. And, in a game that we probably should have won also. So you'd say that, we've been playing, the Bengals have been playing solid football for the last 4 weeks of the season. And, they beat the Jets, which I think was a very big game to beat. And yes, I was very nervous about how they would go in at home and try to beat the Dolphins. I'm not saying that they could have, but if you really looked at the numbers for Miami and compare them to what Joe Burrow did last week and to what the Bengals did last week, they tied neck to neck. And I said this last week, I just wonder if either Tua never got hurt or Tua sat out last week and Teddy Bridgewater got the start last Thursday against the Bengals and he got to play all 60 minutes. I wonder if the Dolphins would have walked away with the victory, because they surely played like it. But nonetheless, listen, we got to give what is given. We have to take what is given to us, and what is given to us was a win. 2 wins on the season. We're 2-2 on the season. And I think that goes to the same around the entire AFC North, because there was opportunities at the door for a team like the Ravens, who could have just kicked the cheap field goal shot and win and score 3 points and get ahead of the Bills. Was it the Bills? Or ahead of the Jets? My mistake. No, it was the Bills. Get it ahead of the Bills last week and could have won the game. And we could be sitting here and heading into Sunday Night Football with the Ravens 3-1 and this much and with more momentum coming their way. Now, I don't know. Okay, I've heard a little bit about this, and I guess Baltimore is an analytic team. But do you really think Harbaugh really wanted to, go for it on 4th down when they're in field goal territory? And just the thing is, I don't know. And I guess the biggest question coming out of, this scenario is, was Baltimore being cocky and being arrogant, saying, hey, if we go for it and we lose this game, we're still fine. We're still contenders. We're still going to be at the top of the division. Or did they just relied on analytics to get them through the game, not considering the XYZ factors? And they cost them the game. And now, because of their poor management skills and the poor play calling by either, John Harbaugh or maybe the front office or even, the coordinators upstairs, this is an opportunity for the Rams to capitalize, take advantage, look for the mistakes that the Ravens will make Sunday night and try to win another game. Because a game like the Ravens, who I've told you back from week 1, they are a aggressive team. They are going to be a team that the Bengals are going to have to overcome in this division. This is their test Sunday night. It's under the lights. And yeah, listen, I know the Bengals don't necessarily play well in primetime games. I've seen that plenty of times. And I would take the victory last week against the Dolphins for what it's worth. But you have Sunday Night Football. You're on the road. And I really feel and believe that this week is another big week. Because you can't drop to 0-2 against your division early on. Okay? And we could sit back and say we should have beat the Steelers. Well, guess what? We didn't. So what do we have to do? We have to find some way to pull off a victory against the Ravens. And when it comes down to facing a team like the Ravens, you just don't know what you're going to get out of them. On top of that, Baltimore's at home, and it's a primetime game. So the antes are up a little bit more on this game to try to lead to 3-2. And, oh, by the way, if you can, you would hold the first place position up until at least Sunday, where the Cleveland Browns are facing the Chargers, which, I mean, I would say I like the Chargers in this category to win in Cleveland. I don't know the health of Justin Herbert, but do you really think, I think we could sit a little bit easier in watching the 1-3 Steelers face the 3-1 Bills. Now, last week, Mike Tomlin had decided to put in Kenny Pickett in the game, taking out Mitchell Trubisky. Ben Roethlisberger has been all over talking about the future, especially at the quarterback position for the Pittsburgh Steelers. All right. He believes that Mitchell Trubisky should be the quarterback for at least this season. That Kenny Pickett should watch Trubisky, should watch the games, go in when needed, of course, but then don't get rushed too quickly. And that's what I think right now a lot of fans, their sense of urgency of wanting to win, and they are solely believing in Kenny Pickett. Hey, you go pick him up in the draft, and you don't, and there's no clear image of what your expectations are. The fans are going to want him to play. Why did we waste a draft pick on a player that is not playing? Well, Ben Roethlisberger believes that just right now, okay, just like me, the way I believe is that a veteran quarterback should play year one, given that this rookie quarterback is learning and maybe have a few snaps here and there, or that starting quarterback goes down. And if the team is not contending at the end of the season, then maybe throw him in the last few games of the year just to get his feet wet. But, last week, Mike Tomlin threw in Pickett, and they got the spark from the fans. They got a spark from the offense, from the defense. And I think overall, this may be the direction that the Steelers go in. You have two potential starting quarterbacks, Trubisky and Pickett, and now you have to see just who is going to take the reins. The Steelers are sitting 1-3, heading to Buffalo, facing Josh Allen, that is 3-1. All right, let's not forget you got to face Von Miller this week on the defensive side of things. So already, Pickett and the Steelers are going to have their the work cut out for them this weekend. And let's not forget, right, that Mike Tomlin has never had a losing season. And I don't think he would like to start that this year. So there's a lot riding over the next few weeks against Pittsburgh as they drop down to Baltimore in week 5. And then trying to see where, and then they host the Buccaneers next week. So the next 2 weeks are going to have the work cut out for them. And if you don't, I guess here's one of my concerns is that because they're not clear on who is starting, because they're not clear on the definition of, hey, we have to have, either Mitchell Trubisky or Kenny Pickett, I think everyone's up in the air. And this is a process, and I think the Pittsburgh fans need to understand. And I think for the most part, most Steelers fans do understand. But because of the outcome of the season and of these games so far, it makes it difficult for them to really just sit down and be patient. Right now, the division's open to anybody, right? 2-2 between the Browns, the Ravens, and the Bengals are 2-2, and the Steelers are 1-3. But what you're going to realize after this week is that at least one of the 3 teams that are 2-2 are going to be 3-2. All right, maybe 2-1. I don't know. Maybe the Bengals and the Ravens are going to tie, and I don't like that case. But at the end of the day, I'm confident that one of these 3 teams are going to be 3-2. And if the Steelers can't find a way to pick up a victory this week against Buffalo, all right, you still don't bet against Tom Brady, who, he's not having the Buccaneers are not having the season that they hope for yet. They're still a favor in the NFC. But you can't afford to get behind. You're already behind 2 games. You lose to Buffalo. You lose to Tampa Bay over the next 2 weeks, and now you're 1-5, and you're playing the catch-up factor in basically by Halloween. And if you're 1-5 by Halloween, I'm sorry to tell you, I mean, there's not many teams. You got to play lights out. Now, you want to compare this to Big Ben's career, where he sat out the first year, right? And then he goes in and replaces who did he replace? We ended up going in, and he ended up replacing Tommy Maddox in week 2. And yeah, they picked up the loss. It was against Baltimore back in 2004. And then he goes on to win 13 straight games. All right, 13 straight regular season games as a starter that year. So maybe, I don't know, maybe Kenny Pickett is the solution in Pittsburgh, and he's going to go out into Buffalo and absolutely annihilate Buffalo. I don't know. But this division is open up to anyone. And, I don't really know the take on the Browns. All I know for the Browns is that they are looking to survive the next 2 months without Deshaun Watson. And they got Jacoby Brissett as the head of the reign. And Jacoby Brissett is doing what he can, the best he can, and he's holding his fort down. But you can't expect the Browns to win each and every game. Now, the Browns are coming in and facing the Chargers this week. All right? Do you think that the Browns can beat the Chargers? Hey, I wouldn't put it past them, right? It all depends, and it's notorious for the Chargers to choke at certain games. But I do favor the Chargers in this one, just because I still believe. I mean, I'm not giving up on the Chargers. I still believe that they are the better team in, one of the better teams in the AFC West. So, the Browns are up in the air. Pittsburgh's looking to figure out and kind of settling in the quarterback situation. It's a patient game. It may be a patient game the rest of the year. I know Mike Tomlin doesn't want to have a losing season, but at the same time, you just have to understand where you're at in the process. I mean, not every quarterback you draft right away is going to be the next star, and don't try to force Kenny Pickett to be that star. Let him grow into that star. If you sign Kenny Pickett and say, hey, you're the franchise, we look at what the Browns try to do with Johnny Manziel and Baker Mayfield, right? They come in and they say, hey, you're the face of the franchise. You're going to lead us to the playoffs. You're going to lead us to the Super Bowl and whatnot. You're going to carry this team. And it may work for a little bit, but then it doesn't work. So let it gradually build and let them work at being that face. Especially out of Kenny Pickett, because you're not a Joe Burrow, you're not a Patrick Mahomes, and you're not a Josh Allen that are able to come up from the college system and just fill in the place. I just don't think Kenny Pickett's that guy. And then also the Ravens. Listen, if they're going to hand you victories, I say I'll take the victories every time you want. All right. I think before we cut the break, the Bengals are starting to find tread, right? They're starting to get into that rhythm. And I think once they fully unleash that rhythm, and I think that another step is beating the Ravens this Sunday night. But by beating the Ravens, you're just continuing that rhythm. And once you could get that rhythm going, there's no doubt that you can have success. Now, coming into week 5, all right, I think I got this mistake. Coming into week 5, and it's the Browns are facing the Chargers, the Bengals are facing the Ravens on Sunday Night Football, and the Steelers are facing the Buffalo Bills on the road. Coming in week 6, and I don't want to look too far ahead before we cut the break for the Bengals, but they're on the road again, right? They're on the road to find out. They're on the road in New Orleans. They're facing the Saints, right? So, just I mean, I know this was a tough stretch, and we're almost done with this stretch, right? And so you lose against you're so far you're 1-1 on the road, you're 1-1 at home, and I say let's wipe the slate clean. You're on the road again. You're against Baltimore. Let's restart. Let's allow Baltimore to make the mistakes and be arrogant, be cocky, whatever the case may be. Play the analytics game, and you play to win the ball game. That's what I got to say. And hopefully, I'm confident. I'm a little, I think I'm going to be honest. I'm a little skeptic about Sunday Night Football game because everything is up in the air right now for Cincinnati. in Baltimore. They're in Baltimore. They're at home. Yeah. There's some concerns to be expressed. All right. That was a little bit of your AFC North. We got to take our last break of the show. We'll come back. We'll talk some AEW Dynamite as they get ready to take Square On tonight. And my question for you guys still remains the same. What do you guys prefer? AEW's way of promoting the show or WWE's way of promoting the show? We'll talk about that next on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel.
Laugh it to the bank like ha 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 ha. Go. Laugh it to the bank like ha ha ha.
The TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel would like to also give a big shout out and thank you to Epidemic Sound for providing royalty-free music to be played on our channel. Discover your world's artists, composers, and bands. Find the perfect soundtrack and give your social media accounts the music they deserve. Epidemic Sound is a royalty-free music link. For more information, check out epidemicsound.com for all your details and information. They got worlds of artists. I love what the selection that Epidemic Sound has here as we continue on a Wednesday morning. And my biggest thing that I wanted to kind of come to your way and just talk about and just get your thoughts and opinions here real quick before we wrap up our show. AEW Dynamite is tonight. Okay. And the first thing I saw on was when I wake up in the morning, I normally check, MLB, CBS Sports, my Facebook account, just to see if anything's new, exciting headlines pop up and whatnot to talk about. And this, got me thinking. The first thing that popped up on my Facebook page was tonight's match card set for AEW Dynamite anniversary. And yeah, it's going to be a big night, but it seems like got me thinking about each and every night. There's a lot of things that AEW promises on, okay? You got Darby Allin and Jay Lethal, Luchasaurus is in action, Ring of Honor Pure Champion, Daniel Garcia and Bryan Danielson, I believe, and Ring of Honor's World Championship, Chris Jericho and Sammy Guevara in action, and then you got Rush versus Hangman and MJF and Wheeler Yuta, Wardlow taking on Brian Cage. And so you got, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 6 matches, 7 matches, already announced for this 2-hour episode. Well, get me thinking. It's like, all right, so you go over to the, you get that promoted each and every week, and I like it. Right, there's a part of me that really likes how AEW really promotes their business. So the promoting, hey. We're gonna have an epic show. It's packed to back from start to finish. They don't waste no time. They get right into the action. They don't, and I like that about this product. I like that about AEW is that they don't waste time to get into the product. They really dive on in, and it just got me thinking because whenever I go look at WWE, and you go look for their shows and. For example, I'll come in, I'll scroll into SmackDown. They have highlights of everything that's happened throughout the week. But then what they'll do is that they'll give you about 2 to 3 matches, or 1, 2 matches, 3 matches, depending on what show it is. And then what they'll do is, okay, so for example, for Monday Night Raw, they promoted that Braun Strowman's taking on Chad Gable. They promoted that Rey Mysterio and AJ Styles is taking on the Judgment Day. And then what they also promoted was that there was going to be a confrontation with Seth Rollins and Matt Riddle, and then a contract signing between Bayley and Bianca Belair for Extreme Rules. And so what WWE has given me the key points on, hey, if I'm going to tune into Raw, this is what I want to tune into. Now, I don't necessarily agree in promoting Braun Strowman because I don't believe where Braun Strowman's at right now in the WWE and how he's being worked is where he should be at. I understand that there's really nothing that you could do for this guy, that there's no storyline this is the only storyline that you could possibly put into place right now. But I just think it's ridiculous how he's having to face Alpha Academy when he came back so much better than that. But WWE said, hey, all right, listen, I have a contract signing that you guys should tune into. Judgment Day is continuing their dismantle of Ray and AJ and Edge, and that should all be, Judgment Day the last couple of weeks, if you have not been watching, has been dominating Monday Night Raw. They kind of been scattered all over the place. And then also, listen, the feud's getting personal between Riddle and Rollins. So those are some key points. But hey, that's all I'm going to give you. Come back if you tune in the entire episode. I'm not going to tell you when it's going to happen. I'm not going to give you everything because I need you to watch the entire episode. And I'm going to throw in this and that and A and B on top of that for you. But I'm not going to tell you what it is. That's what WWE does, right? They give you 2 to 3 factors to draw you in. And maybe, just maybe, they're not the best factors, right, to think about. But they give you 2 to 3 factors to look into, and then they'll draw you in, and then you got to tune in to see the rest. As an AEW, they're not afraid to just go out there and say, hey, listen, this is pretty much the match card. I may have one more match included. I mean, who knows who Luchasaurus is going to be in action against, right? National Scissor Day, right, with the tag team champions, right? So we don't know. But you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 matches, 7 matches for a 2-hour episode. And so you can come in and pick and choose. All right, do I want to watch MJF compete this week? Do I want to watch? I mean, looking on this match card, I like to see Darby. There's 3 matches that really gravitate my attention. That's Darby Allin and Jay Lethal, Wardlow and Brian Cage, and then Russian Hangman. Now, out of everything that's there, it looks like it's going to be an entertaining show. But I feel like AEW has given me a little bit more than what I need to gravitate in. Okay? I mean, give me those 2-3 matches. Tell me, hey, if you want to know the rest, I have to come in and actually watch the program, and then that's it. And it seems like it's a week in and week out process on how they do things like that. All right. Like last week on Dynamite, right? We saw they promoted 2 title matches, Chris Jericho, Bandino, John Moxley, Juice Robinson. They also promoted Toni Storm versus Serena Deebs. Okay. And then they also promoted MJF and Saraya. Now, I don't know. Maybe that was enough, but I just feel like sometimes Dynamite over promotes, every little thing that happens on their show, which is great, but before it even happens, all right, give me a couple matches. Hey, this is the reason why I want you to tune in, and then the rest is, if you want to, you're gonna have to watch the rest if you want to be surprised. So I don't know. I want to hear your thoughts. Let me know down in the comments what you guys think about that. WWE, right? WWE, Halloween Havoc's looking to be teared up. Imperium helps Pretty Deadly survive a title change from the Brawling Brutes as they get set for Extreme Rules, right? Nikita Lyons and Zoe Starks earn a title opportunity with the win over Toxic Attraction, So that advances. Von Wagner looks to smash past Andre Chase in North American title qualifier. Um, that is now a ladder match for the North American Championship. We have to recrown that. I don't think you got 5 guys in there. We'll get to that a little bit later. Halloween Havoc. Julius Creed taking on and Damian Kemp set for highly personal ambulance match at Halloween Havoc. If Julius Creed loses the match, and it was interesting because I watched a little bit. If Julian Creed loses the match, his career's not on the line. His brother's career is on the line. So there's more generally just at stake for the Creed brothers than this. And it's going to be an ambulance match. I think, just the Halloween Havoc alone is going to be a great, just a phenomenal show. And I think it's on October 11th, which is next Tuesday, if I'm not mistaken, here. Yeah, next Tuesday. So those are, and you get it on TV. So there's no doubt that NXT next week is a show that must be watched. And if it's it should be on your radar at everything else. So, all right. Packed for show. I don't know about you. Talked a little bit about AFC North and typed into the NFL as we get ready for week number 5. Thursday night football is tomorrow night, so we'll start talking about that. Give you my score predictions. AEW Dynamite's tonight, so we'll talk about the aftermath tomorrow, hopefully. Talk a little bit about Raw, maybe comparisons. Okay. And then, hey, last day of baseball's today, man. A little emotional. Get emotional. But also, let's get the emotions out today, and then we have then we get ready for the postseason that begins this Friday. So a lot's going on. A lot is going on, you guys, and I'm excited to bring it back with you. We'll be back again tomorrow, 9 to 11, right here on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. And we'll talk about the ALNL Central and how that division turned out, get you the official playoff picture, and all that conversation. So a lot more to talk about, a lot more to get underway. We're just halfway through the week, you guys. Bear with us. We're almost done with this. And that's it. So until next time, you guys take care. Until tomorrow, have a great day. And we'll look forward to seeing you guys tomorrow. Take care. Have a good one.